Good day traders, good day traders, good day traders. Thank you for liking, thank you for commenting, thank you for subscribing. And yeah, this is part 2 of the video. Part 2 is all about how to enter or how to place an entry using the Fibonacci technique, Fibonacci sequence, anything Fibonacci and everything Fibonacci. This trade was taken in March. This was based on the risk on environment that was displayed or that was playing out. And in me trading this one out now, I realized one thing. Before taking the trade the day before on the 18th, the market was risk on. Now the reason why you have this impulsive move actually came from a risk on idea that maybe the pandemic was overstretched, maybe it was over exaggerated, maybe some of the economies are actually going to open up. So there were rumors of some economies or some countries that are able to handle the pandemic or the virus or the outbreak. So in saying that, that is not a traditional or something that we used to in the fundamental space. So how do you use that idea in trading? It became obvious that if things are opening up, if markets are opening up, then everyone needs to partake now. Everyone needs to be buying all the risk pairs and letting go of the risk off pairs. And in this case, we have US dollar against the Swiss franc. Swiss franc, it normally holds value since they have so much gold under their central banks. So if such a rumor or such an idea or sentiment kicks in, sometimes you need to let go of your traditional ideas, your traditional technical ideas, because when I say traditional technical ideas, that is sometimes you have to trade outside of your normal sessions. If a setup takes place outside of the session, you have to be part of the system now. Why? Because the fundamentals are saying it's a buy. Remember, in actual fact, during this pandemic height, I don't think sessions were actually applying. Big moves were also happening in Asia. Small moves were happening in London, and then they would kick off in the US session. I mean, things got so screwed up, everything got so upside down that traditional ideas or technical ideas, they became flawed, because that's when you realize that the fundamentals or the economics behind the currencies, they dominate the movement. And as a technical trader, most of you realize that accounts were blown, and people would blame it on one thing. They would say, no, people were risking too much. People were failing to manage their risk. It's not about managing your risk. It's not only about managing their risk. It's about when you're wrong, you cut your losses. When you're right, you leverage on your right decisions. And most technical ideas, as we know, when you're right, you get paid for being right, which is simply a win. But if you trade with sentiment, with fundamental ideas behind the currents, when you're right, you are able to compound on your ideas because you've researched, you've done a bit of research, or you fully understand, you have the scope of what is happening. So for this particular trade, or for this trade here, it wasn't an easy trade for someone who doesn't understand fundamental. And again, for someone who is very mechanical in their trading strategy, if you're very mechanical, you are not going to catch this one out, because this is a trade that was outside of the sessions. So here I believed in one thing. I believe in the fundamentals. I believe in the sentiment that, oh, now there seems to be hope about this pandemic. There seems to be hope. There seems to be hope about this pandemic. We might be opening up soon. It's not all gloomy, so maybe markets are about to open maybe in the next 3 or 5 or 6 months. So I took the trade based on that idea. It's a hunch, it's a feelings at time. But in you having that hunch, you also consult other sources like your financial source. So when I went through Forex Live, some of the guys were also having the same narrative that that the markets might be opening up. And then another one is amplified trading. Amplified trading. So if you know what amplified trading is all about, there's also a service, a fundamental service that informs you of what is happening economically behind the assets, particularly the indices. I mean. And this is how I took the trade. I saw an impulse. Now, let me be honest, I wasn't waiting for this trade to pan out, because on the 18th, I was just studying the sentiment around the moves. So on the 18th, the sentiment of the rumor kicked in, and then when I woke up, because you have to sleep, when I woke up, I realized I woke up 30 minutes before I even took the trade. But the trade was just playing out on its own. So waking up, I woke up knowing that we're in a risk-on environment. And you can see it, or you can see the risk-on environment in the volume. There was enough volume now to kick in to show that people are buying into it. The volume in gold, the volume in oil. Not so much in USD CHF. So number one, well, as soon as I woke up, this is where I woke up. This is the time. This is the time period where I woke up. So this is me waking up. This is outside of the London Open or the London session, or the appropriate session of trading the London one. So you wake up and then you see this. As soon as I saw this, I saw this. This is a two-wave move down, a two-wave move up. What it does, it confirms that we have our first corrective wave to the downside, as we have this impulsive move to the upside. So this told me that, or this highlighted to me that chances are we might be projecting the same time space in the future. So I copied and pasted this entire thing here. So when you copy and paste it, and like I said, it plays out nicely. And as part one says, we need to see three different things. We need to see time developing equally. We also need to see similar distance cover. Similar distance cover. And the last part is I need to see stops being run. As you can tell now, stops are not even ran here. Stops don't get taken out. So does this mean this is an unplayable play? No. This setup is very playable. It's very playable. Why? Because now you have your sentiments. There's a sentiment driver here, which says we are risk on. Even though we do not tick all the box of the criteria. Criteria one, which is similar distance play, we have something of that nature. The time play is there, but we're not taking stops. We're not taking the current daily stops. So the daily low is not taken out. So it means now this is not a high probability trade, technically so. It's not a high probability trade according to the technicals. But when it comes now to the fundamentals of the sentiment, it's very tradable to the upside. And then two, now we're seeing the Fib Fann. Remember, a Fib Fann is also a tool that also creates your supports and resistance. Price normally bounces up and down on these levels. Look at this. Price bounced on this Fib level 50. It crossed and it came out of it. What happens is, before it even left the 61.8, it bounced on, or it coiled, or it oscillated just around this level, or this line. So in us taking the trade, we realized that because 76.4 is another support and resistance zone. If price is about to make a huge move, normally it bounces on the 76.4. because it's also another Fib idea. And what is nice now, another thing to add, is that we have a pivot level. This is a PP line, because as a daily trader, if you're going to take a daily trade, the pivot levels are very important. This is where normally price pivots. This is where price tends. That's why they call them pivot levels. And then the time now. So looking into the pair or looking into the trade, I thought we were in the London kill zone. Actually, we were outside of it. By an hour or so, we were outside of it. The reason why I took the trade confidently so is because we were risk on. Markets were about to welcome the news that we might be opening up in 3 or 6 months time, which is good. And now we need to talk about the momentum. As soon as you leave the trade or your entry, we need to see a move that is violent in order for us to stay into the play. For you to remain in the game, we need to see movement in terms of price. If the market is going on up slowly, we expect one thing. As the movement happens, we don't want to see any bad fundamentals of that pair. If we're bullish, we don't want any negative fundamentals kicking in. And you can only keep up with the fundamentals if you follow these guys. This is where you check your financial source and rent squawk. So they keep you updated. And sometimes they use an audio, or they offer an audio to update you. Auditorically, so they offer an audio to update you that these are the news that are coming. What is nice about financial source is that this is a cheap service. The service is only $97 a month. So I expect everyone to be able to afford this service, $97 a month, just to inform you guys. So in me trading this setup, what is nice about it is that I placed an entry here because in terms of time we have matured. We have matured in so many different technical ways. We have matured, we even broke this trend line. If you're someone who knows how to use a trend line, we have matured and then use a stop. This is your stop. So we have a stop here. But now it's going to trade this one out. We are going to place various entries. Why? Because we are confident in the move. As soon as the market makes an up move, we add position because now we are confident that we are in a risk on environment and then technically we are good. So many things are lining up. The only thing that is not lining up is stops. Stops are not taken. People are not flashed out. We want to see that flash. We want to see that push. It's like all of us are trying, we're rushing into the train. You all want to be part of the system. You all want to be part of the gravy train. But as soon as you get in there, others are left behind. So we want to see these big players pushing retailers behind them. Why? Because they know it's the retailers at times that are pushing price. So the big players are playing that game. They will push you out and then they will move the market violently. And another reason why the market never moved so violently, because there were not any flashes here. So as you can see, this is the momentum now. As soon as we left our entry, price was going up nicely. As it is going up nicely because it's above this trend line. Remember this, it is copied and pasted from the impulse move. This momentum trend line is coming from the impulse itself. So this alerts us that actually the move has some juice or some gravy to it. So this is a nice move. And then I think another reason why as you can see, this is the low. Correlations were breaking here. As you can tell now, we're not breaking this low. And on the dollar index, the same thing was panning out. And in some of the Swiss franc, or some of the risk-off pairs, you could tell that some of the risk-off pairs were being sold out or sold off. So there was heavy selling for bonds, there were heavy sellings for risk-off pairs. So this lets you know that we're in a risk-on environment. We need to buy what is risky. So what is nice about this trade again is things are all playing out, but there is a box that we're not actually going to tick, which is stops being run. We never stopped players out before we made the actual trade. So the reason why I'm bringing this example is because I need to highlight that not everything is going to play out as it is given on the template, my template rather. As you can tell now, we have the current daily low. Stops are not taken out. We don't see any flashes. So does that mean we're not going to trade? Yeah, we're going to trade. Why? Because in terms of time, we're maturing. We almost have a similar distance curve according to the Elliot waivers. And two, we are risk on. We are risk on. So the up move is confirmed fundamental, but the technicals are going against the fundamental idea. And this goes to show that fundamentals or the sentiment will always trump the technical plays. So another emphasis why we need to follow our fundamentals. Always follow your fundamentals, guys. So this is part 2, where everything started for me in actual fact. When it comes to us using your Fibonacci, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. We have time developing nicely. We have a Fib Fann 76.4, price bounced nicely on it. A pivot level also bounced. So when you're trading this, you don't have to look for these things to play out. I think if you have 2 out of the 3 from the ones mentioned on the previous video, I think that's sufficient for you to take a trade. Sufficient in the sense that you need a sentiment idea before you take the trade, or behind your ideas. Not everything will be driven by technicals. So if you have 2 out of 3, if all 3 line up, then it's a high probability trade. Take it. But as soon as you take the trade, it does not mean it's going to hit your target. Sometimes the market tends to slow down as it approaches your target. As you can see, this one was violent, so it was obvious that it was going to get to 100%. But if a market tends to do this now, it doesn't even hit the 61.8, or it struggles to get to 76.4, coming from a 76.4 Fib Fann, then it tells you that the momentum has died off now. It's best you cut your losses, cut the trade. So, but when you transact now, when you do this, when you run a line in between the moves, you can tell that the move is violent. The momentum is still up, guys. So it's best now to target what? To go for a 123 if you're someone who is into bigger targets. In my case, I'm not into big targets. I'm into compounding the move. Adding as you're winning. The first trade needs to subsidize the second one. The first 2, they need to subsidize the third one. And sometimes go heavy. Because sometimes as soon as you enter the trade, there are news that are going to come in or two. Not news in the favor of the dollar maybe. Suppose now we're in a risk-on environment as we have here. Suppose this is a risk-on environment, this is playing out. As soon as you place the entry, what happens? The Swiss now. It's reported that in Switzerland, maybe something is breaking out. The economy now is about to fall. These are not positive news for the dollar. These are negative news for what? For Swiss franc. But this is positive. This is a bullish setup or bullish news for the pair. These are bullish news for the pair, negative for the Swiss franc, not so much positive for the dollar. It does not support the dollar that much, but the pair, since it's paired with something that is a risk on pair, and sometimes the dollar tends to play this dual role. Sometimes it's a risk on pair, sometimes it's a risk of pair. If the Swiss franc now fails to hold up to its promise, then the dollar needs to take into position. So I like this play, guys. Every time when you enter trade, just update yourself. What is happening fundamental? As I'm saying, suppose maybe something kicked in here, because as soon as I entered the trade, I never worried about what was going to happen. I only looked at the momentum of the price, because this is where you actually lose and make your money. But in most of the cases, what happens is that as soon as you enter a trade and it works in your favor and you see a violent move, it's because one of the currencies has reported a bad or a good news, thus now affecting the entire pair in your favor or out of your favor. But the technicals are important. We cannot dispute that the technicals are important. We use technicals to enter, we use technicals to exit a trade. But for us to be in the trade, we stay in the technical space in the trade because of the fundamental reasons. And the fundamentals are actually the ones that make us to go heavy now. So guys, yeah, these are the ideas. If you feel like I'm babbling, please let me know. If you feel like you need more of this content, let me know. Like I said, like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any question, let's engage on Twitter. Let's engage Twitter and Instagram, and my email, which is actuarytrader24, actual trader on Instagram, actual trader on Twitter. So I think I've said enough. I've covered all grounds according to this picture I have here. I like doing these videos, so yeah. If you have any question, please make your comments. Let me see what I can do for you, or if you have any pointers, if you want to let me on my blind spot. Like I always say, I don't know anything. I'm just a being who's trying to learn. Please help me out. Please help me out. I'm here to learn. Give as much as I'm giving, then we can all be blessed. Thank you, guys.